Well, Doug, welcome. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
You know, you are a longtime leadership coach with us and our team. You're a advisory board member,
That's true.
and most importantly, you're a friend, and become a really good friend. As a matter of fact, probably to the point where I would say I would consider you a very personal mentor without necessarily putting a label on it, just over the years. And
I don't know what happened. I became the old friend, but yes, I feel like
yeah.
the old friend.
No, I think it's what's nice about that is it's not an official thing. Like I didn't claim it to be. It's
Yeah,
just we've become such good friends that we can, we have such different perspectives, but yet so
yeah,
similarly
but
centered.
Like Andy would not be a mentor; he'd be a friend,
Yeah,
right? So I became the mentor because I'm whatever it is, 13 years older.
yeah,
So it's just interesting.
yeah. So at the heart of it, I just appreciate our friendship and all the guidance and leadership you've brought to the table. And that's actually one of the things I wanted to really to kind of dig into a little bit with you today. Um, as you know, and it's one of my favorite things to talk about is how do you push the envelope? Like how do you go beyond just I guess, the barriers that we think we have versus the ones that actually exist, right? And so I'm just going to start off, throw you a big curveball question and say, okay, so based on your experiences with coaching other leaders, what do you think they fear the most?
Yeah, we were talking prior to this that I think it's subjective. I don't think there is a general thing, but I think if I had to narrow it down, it has something to do with I don't. My words are going to sound softer than yours, but if I was thinking through your avatar, I would say I don't want to look stupid and I don't want to fail. I want, actually, the reverse is I want to be considered this way, and whatever isn't that,
Yeah.
that's what they're afraid of. So whatever that vision is of the way they want to be perceived, which is subjective,
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's not respect. I don't want to be a disappointment. For people that are wired like you, it's more, you
Don't want
know,
to fail.
they
Right.
they
And you don't
want,
want people to see that you failed.
yeah,
Yeah.
they want, top grade. They want a grade. They
Yeah.
want A plus. I'm fine with a B minus. It's fine
Right.
with me. Just don't let me be a disappointment. So whatever that gap is, I think they're afraid of. It sounds so shallow, but they're afraid of reputational gap
Yeah.
in their mind. What really being a great leader means to them.
Okay. So ending it that way is important, right? So when you said what a great leader should be or could be, because when we talk leadership right now, I'm talking specifically business executives,
Right.
right? People that are running multinational, multi-billion dollar businesses, and they're all driven by reputational career mindsets. You're right. The fear of failure, I, for one, understand that 100%. I live that personally as one of my challenges, which is partly why I probably push the envelope a little bit to see where their breaking point is. But if that's not what true leadership's about, and that's not what's driving me, what should it be?
Well, I think that is what drives most leaders. So what should it be? What could it be? I'm not in any position to say what it should be. I think what it could be is what you and I've been learning together as friends and as colleagues is being motivated by love, not fear.
Right.
Right? I don't know how much you've done on these videos with that, but that's what I think it could be. And if when it is, it's always to serve, not serve others, not ourselves.
Yeah.
And my biggest challenge as a becoming a better human is to always know the difference.
Yeah.
And it's what most of my clients struggle with most is when am I serving myself and my own fears and sense of inadequacy,
Yeah.
imposter syndrome, whatever you want to name it, versus I'm really doing this for you.
Right. And I think the word servant leadership comes to mind, and it's often, I think in many cases abused again because it's just another leadership tactic. And I don't know if people really understand what that really means is to serve. So, how would you describe serving a servant leadership style.
Yeah, so I have a different, this will be a quotable for you guys. I think all leadership is serving. So you're not a leader if you're not serving. So I never really understood why we needed a servant leadership. It's kind of, I know why, because it's sad. It needed to be highlighted. But to me, leadership without serving others is not leadership.
Right.
It's just, it's some kind of transactional pursuit. So all leadership is serving the other. And if they're not, then I would say you're not a leader.
What does it look like, though?
It looks like most business people, they're practicing best practices. They're trying to, perform. They're trying to hit metrics
Yeah.
and numbers, all the things that they're trained to do. I've been teaching in MBA schools on and off as an adjunct faculty for years, and I'm always intrigued whether any of this seeps in, and it doesn't. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a time when leadership is actually talked about in the way we're talking about it. Most of the time, it's all in
It's all
drive for that-
numbers. Yeah.
drive that
Right.
that number.
So then what does leading in a serving manner look like in your mind?
Yeah. So my definition, the way I've centered it, is that leadership is authentic self-expression in ways that add value. So if you're fully yourself, if you're authentic, and you're on mission, you have a purpose to serve, then you're going to be received. And then if it adds value, it has to add value to the customer, to the team, to the mission, not to you. And so it's authentic self-expression, being fully expressed as yourself in a way that adds value to the mission. And whatever your mission is, doesn't matter if it's profit or nonprofit. So
Okay, so I want to dig into that a little bit more. If you don't mind, Doug, because those sound good, but as a practical, tactical step. So I'll use an example. For instance, Simon Sinek talks a lot about leaders eat last. He wrote a book on it too. And it was the whole premise that, these military leaders would let their soldiers or their, team members eat first and then they would eat last. It was a very symbolic yet practical gesture to say, hey, you're more important than I am. What does that mean from a business executive perspective? Because to serve others sounds good. And if you're in the serving industry, that looks like, well, I'm feeding others, I am doing something. But in the business sense, what does that actually tangibly look like?
Fair question. I think that the reason military create those rituals, and this is my respect for military is very high. However, I think that they create those rituals, they're behavior modifiers. They're there to serve as signals. They aren't the real deal. So I imagine many military leaders eat last, but they still feel more important than the other people.
I'm sure.
So they're
that's true.
doing it for ritual. So I would say the practical side of this is that people would actually feel that you see them, value them, and hear them. So they would know you are there for them, not for yourself.
So it's not just eating last, but it's actually to make them recognize and feel,
Yeah.
which is a hard word for most of us driven leaders to talk about as feelings, right? It feels to the rest of the team like they actually are genuinely put first.
Yeah, feel is the right word. I don't know how else to describe it. When I'm with somebody, do I know they're actually with me? It's presence.
Yeah.
I'm reading a new book that I told you about that I think has really got great language, and it's called The Non-Anxious Presence Leader. And the whole point of it is the best thing you can do as a leader. So here's a practical answer to your question, is to bring non-anxious presence.
Oh, I like that. Non-anxious presence.
You're bringing your full authentic self. The reason you're not anxious is not because you're not human. It's because you're centered and you know your identity,
Yep.
you know your purpose,
Yep.
and you know what your assignment is.
Right.
So you're integrated. You're living from the inside out. You're not anxious because you're counting on them. The identities in the room are now going to match up and take care of things. So that non-anxious presence then allows people to be afraid if they're afraid so that you can help them with it, or to just play full out
Yeah.
and just be exactly who they were meant to be. So I think you feel safe, psychologically safe to be truly yourself. So I think it is a feeling.
Which is hard if your fear of failure is such a heavy feeling, right?
Or if I'm afraid of you feeling like I'm a failure,
Right.
if I fear your words. I was talking to one of our other friends this morning who has high expectations, and I am chronically worried about disappointing those expectations. And that's not that person, my friend's issue, it's my issue.
Yeah.
Because I know what those expectations are here.
Right.
When I drove here this morning, I remembered who I was meeting with, and I was here 3 minutes early because I know what your expectations are.
Yeah.
And so we have to be able to set expectations, but also see people wholly and give them the grace to be able to move in and out of that.
That integrated component you talk about, I love that, right? Because I've come to accept that the idea of work-life balance isn't a thing, right?
Good.
One is because people tend to think it's only those two things that matter,
Right.
firstly. So there's your premise, his assumption is wrong. But secondly, if you're centered, as you said, and you know your identity, you know your purpose, you know your vocation, you know your commitment to life, whatever that looks like, if those are all centered and aligned or integrated, it doesn't matter when you're working 12 hours one day and 2 hours the next day. None of those things really matter. It's like that everything is moving in unison, almost like an orchestra in the right way. Why do you think that so many organizations and executives especially struggle with that concept?
They're still trying to figure out what the integration is. They don't have the sequencing, right? Because if you know your identity, you don't have to prove anything to anybody. So if you're just being that, not doing it, which is different, if you're being your identity, then there is no metric. So that when neurosis sets in, psychology word, it's the sense that I'm not enough in this moment.
Right.
And so if I'm not enough in this moment, then I get anxious. So now I'm not providing non-anxious presence. So I'm anxious and I'm bringing that to the conversation. I think the second thing is they're still looking for the magic script, the 5 things to this, 12 things to that.
The 1-minute manager.
They think the script actually will get them.
Right.
Well, I think the spirit of the 1-minute manager was fine. It's how we live that out.
Yeah.
Like there's lots of, the scripts are there, like the ritual of letting other people eat first are good. They're good reminders to think of yourself less than them.
Yeah.
It's just whether we actually do.
Right.
So do we wholeheartly believe that that's true, that I'm not better than them?
So speaking of scripts, slightly off topic, but yet very relevant, is instead of a script, I get the sense that people or leaders are thinking that AI is that now. So instead of it, hey, I need to have my script, I need to know exactly what I need to do to be a better leader, there's almost a sense, well, AI is going to be able to be this magic silver bullet / easy button to press. It's going to take care of all this other stuff so that I can be relieved of this anxiety or these fears of failure. What's your view on AI? Not the technological architecture or anything, just its presence in our world and to what extent it's going to have an impact on us as leaders.
I think you're spot on. I think people are looking for the next magic bullet. I haven't ran into leaders that are actually believing that yet. I think most of the leaders I'm working with are still very skeptical that they would like to believe that it actually has some value.
Yeah.
And they're just not sure. And then the fact the race is on, everybody's, launching and moving towards that. I was recently, I work with my chat GTP in a way that I felt an acceleration of productivity personally. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of like when you're on that moving walkway at O'Hare or whatever airport you're on. I'm doing the same thing, but it's helping me go faster. That's how I experienced it. Excuse me. So I think AI has the potential to be a great support to man. The people that want to hide and not actually show up and be brilliant themselves and be themselves, be the identity, they're the ones that will fail with AI because they're looking for it to compensate for an inadequacy or an insecurity. And it won't do that. It'll actually, I think AI will accelerate and expose your inadequacy
Ooh.
if you just let it play out, because people can tell when it's not you. So, yeah, I think it'll just be really bad for a lot of people.
That's an interesting spin, because we tend to talk a lot about the jobs that are being lost, right? And it's usually the knowledge workers, it's the mundane work, it's the stuff that we don't want to be doing. But what you're saying there is so much deeper, is that even for leaders that are supposedly playing a very important role, that if they are coming over with these sense of insecurities, it's going to expose it more rather than necessarily cover it.
Yeah, because they're going to trust it. They're going to trust it more than they trust themselves, and that's always a bad idea.
Yeah.
And that's why people are afraid, robots, AI might take over. They make movies about it, is because they don't trust themselves.
Yeah.
And Brene Brown makes this very clear that we have to belong to ourselves first. We have to trust ourselves. We have to know ourselves so that others can feel free to be in a relationship with us. If you don't trust yourself, then why am I going to trust you? So you're actually selling me something that I don't even believe in.
Yeah. So if you go back to your earlier definition about leadership, right? How much of AI will change that definition in your mind? And does it?
I think people will become less authentic. I think it'll make it worse. So unless they're careful. If they know who they are and they're quite authentic already, then it'll just accelerate that. If they don't, it'll reinforce and make it louder. Think of golf. You played golf with me recently. If I take out my driver, I'm just going to hit it farther out of bounds than I would with a 3-wood, right? So I always carry a 3-wood. I don't hit with a driver because I'm not at this age and this point in my life, I'm not skilled enough.
Yeah.
So I'm still going to swing the same. The driver's just going to hit it farther. So if your trajectory is off, AI is just going to help you accelerate it, go out of bounds even farther. That's all it's going to do.
Oh, I love that.
If it's on, I don't know. I'm pretty excited about what AI can do for people that are genuinely centered, that are aligned, that do know who they are. I think it could be really beautiful. We'll see.
Well, I mean, hate to bring up a sad story, but there's, most recently, a kid that was committed suicide because he communicated his feelings to ChatGPT over time. And then after a while, this thing actually shared how to deploy some technique in that space. And it's just...
Again, what your starting point is, it's just going to get farther and farther from reality.
But how do we deal with that, right? Because children or kids are turning towards technology. It's no different than what we did. Our version of technology is different. Alcohol.
We're all looking for an out. It doesn't matter.
There's an addiction to it, yeah?
Totally. The phones are already an epidemic addiction, and now we're adding AI. It's just going to accelerate that addiction. That's all it's going to do.
The phones are an epidemic.
It's our addiction to the dopamine hits we get from being attentive to our phone, to social media and everything on it, is already suppressed any addiction in the world. It's been 10 years. People just haven't caught up to it yet. And now AI is added to that phone.
Yeah.
So again, you take a person, and this is my field, you take a person who's already doesn't know who they are, and so they're lost, and then they artificially use AI to help them define a reality. They're going to be more lost, which is what happened,
right.
What will happen.
Right.
It's also could be the other way if it's somebody that's using it in conjunction with appropriate, whether it's a professional or a mentor or a family member, then it could really encourage them. It's going to go whichever direction your center takes you.
Yeah, so the question is it the technology is the problem, or is it the way we use it?
Correct.
Is it the same as the old gun story? Is it guns that kill or people who kill, right?
I don't want to get into politics.
No, I'm with you. But
it's true.
It becomes a question of, is the tool the problem, or is it the way we use it?
Yeah, and the best way we know how to end those things is to remove them, which is silly because, they're, so it's a simplistic answer to a very complex problem. It doesn't fix the problem.
So from a leadership perspective, now coming back to executives again, trying to mentor people below them and all the youth coming into their organizations, what can they be teaching younger people, whether it's, let's say it's maybe not even in your business, it could be just people you're mentoring, just generally speaking, to create that resilience, if you want, that agility to be able to adapt more so than get caught up in the technology. Like, is it the AI? Is it the tool? Is it the, it's like back in the year 2000, if you were there saying, well, the internet's coming, but it's not going to change our lives. It's a lot of people now with AI, like, it's great, it's coming, but it's not going to affect me. It will. It is the reality. The question is, do we have solid foundations
Right.
to deal with that?
Right.
How would you, if I were one of those leaders, what would you tell me to focus on to make sure the people around me have a solid foundation?
Yeah, so I think you're already doing it. I think it's the new language that I'm using, that you're using, is we need to help people remove the lie and live from the truth of who they are.
Yeah.
Right. So we're calling that identity. You can call it your authentic self, your core self. But if without replacing the lies with the truth of who you are, you're in trouble. You're at risk to be. A lot of us are at risk to be influenced by our bosses. I would say there's an old saying, I love it, that people can be very successful in their career and become worse human beings along the way. And unfortunately,
I think that's very true.
It happens frequently.
Absolutely.
And so because they admire somebody that's very successful, they've made a vertical and they've made a name for themselves, they want to be like them, so they're told to imitate them. Literally, psychologists say this. It's a terrible idea. You don't imitate successful people. You borrow and some of their stuff, but you become the best version of yourself. And yes, some of their success habits might be helpful, but they're not the ticket. They're not the way. They're not the path for you. And so a lot of people try to be somebody they're not, which is that back to authenticity.
Yeah.
If you can't be who you are meant to be, then you're never going to serve people well. You just aren't.
And who you meant to be, right, is different than the best version of yourself. Or is it?
Say that again. Who you're meant to be.
Who you meant to be, that authentic self you talk about, versus being the best version of yourself implies some form of growth. Is that different, or is it the same thing?
I think I use them interchangeably, but you're pushing the envelope a little bit, asking me. If you really take a look at that we are, a frog doesn't need to be told it's a frog. Martin doesn't need to be told who he is. So to me, the best version of being a frog is, how do I be a frog really well? So I would say, if we're clear about who our identity is, being the best version of that would be healthy. If we're not, then we're just compensating. So it's a both and. I think it's could be, but depends on what your motive is. Let me give you I have a riddle that I've been teaching people with.
Yeah.
Person A, high work ethic, works hard, very productive, and earns a living that feeds the family and takes care of them, but they have nothing extra. They cannot retire. Person B works hard, high work ethic, all of that, but they have a retirement plan and they are set. They can, they can actually retire if they want to. Which one is going to be the highest potential to be the best version of themselves?
I would say probably the first one.
Okay.
Mostly because the way I would look at those two scenarios is that as the first one, you're going to be in a situation where, one, you're at peace with where you're at because you're living day to day, right? Versus the other one is squirreling things away in a silo. And, some people say that's good preparation, right? There's others that know that tomorrow is not promised, so live day to day. But I think if you live day to day, you're also allowing yourself to be challenged and also surrendering to what tomorrow offers. And we don't know. And because of that surrender, you do give yourself the better chance to be the best version of yourself. And I'm still going to ask you a question about what does that actually, how do you measure that? But we'll get to that.
Yeah, so
typical engineer, yeah.
But it flies in the face of everything we're taught. I mean, every wealth manager in the planet, including mine, would be appalled.
Absolutely.
At your response, right? So everything we're taught is this is the way. The actual answer to the riddle is we don't have enough information.
Yeah.
Which is your answer. Unless we know what the motive of either of these are, we won't know if they could be the best version of themselves. So the outcomes don't determine whether we're going to be the best version of ourselves.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's our heart and our motivation. Are we aligned and centered? Do we know who we are and why we're doing? Either one of those we could fail in if we don't know that.
Absolutely. And probably why I lean towards the first one is because to me, the best version of me is to be challenged, is to put myself in a place to be challenged, etc.
Yeah.
But that may not be necessarily true for the next guy.
Correct.
Right? So if you do talk about the best version of yourself, it's great and it means a lot and it obviously sits well from a heart perspective. But then when you ask somebody that's more left brain, what does that look and feel like? How do I know that I am becoming the best version of myself every day? Like what's the quote unquote measure of success?
Yeah, I think that's subjective to each person because if I'm a frog, success is, whatever, lily pads and jumping and eating flies. If I'm a butterfly, it's, my life is kind of short, if you know what the life of a butterfly is. So we have to understand who we are and what in the context of what we're placed. So success is not external, it comes from the inside. And I've had many discussions about how to readjust success metrics. I could tell you this, don't let AI do it. And don't let voices outside of you give you that measurement of success. It needs to come from the truth of who you are.
Yeah.
If you can align with the truth of who you are, then your success measures, they used to say, do what you love and your money will follow. I would say it differently. Do what you love. There's an old book, Marcia Centaur wrote that. Do what you love and the money will follow. Do what you love and the money that you need will follow. Do what you love, be who you are, and there'll be enough. They will. They just will. And it's just, because we get in the curse of comparison, we always think, well, it's not enough because Martin has this much and my other friend has this much and I don't have that. How come I don't? It means I'm not as good as Martin.
Right. And I mean, it's a difficult thing, right? For instance, I can completely resonate with that because I've walked this journey with you for some time now. But if you had to ask the Martin 10 years ago, I was the left-brained, run through the wall, give me a goal and I'll achieve it for you mindset, which I think comes back to the earlier part of our conversation, like what are executives afraid of, right, is fear of failure. I was 100% that, right? Fear of failure. Therefore, nothing will stop me from achieving success. And it's measurable because it's either measured in, as you said, some form of financial metric, some kind of a fitness metric, some kind of a something metric, right?
Yep.
When you're talking about the hard stuff that you're really talking about a measure that very few executives live in, one, and two, really can actually resonate with because you're saying be the best version of yourself, live out your authentic self. All these things are very much heart-based things that is very difficult for people to put some form of a metric or measure against to say, I'm doing that. And then the bigger question then is how am I leading from that?
Yeah.
And am I? Or do I go back to, well, here's the 7 things we got to do?
Yeah, I've seen many leaders try different techniques. I don't know if any of them work. I'm part of a generous giving national movement that's really cool. And they basically are collecting a lot of very wealthy people and trying to influence their generosity. And the stories that they videotape like this and that they create, so many of them will say, okay, I'm gonna cap my salary at $200,000 a year and I'll never make more. And their company goes out and be $10 billion or whatever, $10 million a month. One of them was. And I'm like, okay, they're going to take that, whatever that is, $17,000, $18,000 a month paycheck and be happy with it. That's what they're doing. They're trying to, contain it. Others try to give away 90% and keep 10, that kind of thing. So we're constantly trying to not follow the metric. Bigger is better, the more the better, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's hard.
It is hard, especially because we live in a scarcity world too, right?
Yep.
So you and I have talked about this worldview often, and the abundant worldview versus the scarcity worldview is significantly different. And abundance assumes a level of surrender, kind of coming back to your parameters between those two examples. But scarcity is what we all live in, which is what most people live in, is a shortage of everything: time, money, resources, you name it. There is just this constant. So one way to assume a measure of success out of a world of scarcity is to say that I have more than what is my base need.
Yeah, scarcity is a mindset. It's not a metric. That's the difference. So, for instance, some people, one thing that I do find with leaders is they don't want to be taken advantage of. Don't take advantage of me. That's all I ask. Well, that doesn't allow them to live out of abundance because they're now worried if they're being taken advantage of. Or don't throw me under the bus, right? Which we hear all the time.
Right.
Just don't ever throw me under the bus. My reputation is my code. And so if I do throw them under the bus, then I'm dead to them. That's call it scarcity, but it's just living out of fear. They're afraid of something that they have no control over. We have no control over our reputation, Martin, whether we want to believe we do or not. I could be the best version of me, and many people in the world will say, well, he was just a schmuck. And we all get that. We just don't like to read it or hear about it. And when we do hear about it, we're like, who was that? Mm-hmm. It was every general person out there. So I think scarcity is broader than just there's not enough. It's defined based on my subjective fears. What am I afraid of? When I ask people what they're afraid of, I wish I could give you a good answer, but some of them are literally afraid of being taken advantage of. I told you this morning, many of the leaders I'm talking to recently are about health. They're afraid of losing their physical health. Another fear is that some people are afraid that if they succeed, that they have to maintain it. So they're afraid of success. Which is but nobody really understands that, but it's a real thing. So I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna really push the envelope, because if I do, I have to keep hitting that number. And you're an athlete, and so at this age, let's call it late 40s, at your age in the 40s, you're hitting different numbers than you were in the 20s, but your brain doesn't know the difference. Right? So they're like, oh, I'm still not as good as I used to be able to run. I don't know, what's a normal run for you, 15 miles, whatever. You're an ultra athlete. So we have to be appropriate to reality, and reality shifts and changes. And that's why the metrics are so confusing to people, because they're like, oh, I have to do that, or I have to hit that. And maybe not. Maybe that's not the best version of you. In a book by Miguel Ruiz, it's called The Four Agreements, which I love. His last one is to do your very best. And his message is, it's Toltec wisdom, but his message is your very best changes from day to day. Mm-hmm. Like if you go play golf and it's a day like today and the greens are rolling as they should, you should expect to play. But if it's raining and it's 43 degrees and the wind is blowing 20 miles an hour, why do we expect that we're going to shoot a 77 again? I would never do that, but I would hope I'd shoot a 90, right? So because our brain is tricking ourselves, we don't understand that the reality we're in is going to define whatever the best version of myself looks like that day. I can't will myself to beat the weather. I could try, but even the best golfers in the world can't. All the scores go down.
But I think you're hitting on something really key here, Doug. And again, I'm trying to articulate that back to kind of a world that we live in every day with our customers and clients, right? And they're running big businesses. And so you say to somebody, be the best version of yourself. That's usually be better than the previous day. But what you're saying really is it's not about being better. It's being the best in that day. So no matter the circumstance or the environment or the wind or whatever situation you're in, you're saying be the best you can be. And I think it kind of ties back to a lot of the pushing the envelope thing a little bit too, because it's not about always just being better the next. You push to see where the failure is, but then the failure is also a message on its own. It says, hey, you failed, what do you learn from it? And so I love that because it's being the best in that day, not necessarily being better than yesterday.
And maybe the best that day is learning from your failure.
That's right.
And we reverse that. We fail, therefore we suck,
Yes.
instead of we fail, therefore we
Right.
learn.
And the metric didn't go up from yesterday. It's stable or it went down. However, I know that I did the best I could in the circumstances of and the macroeconomy, microeconomy, whatever it is, in that moment.
Yeah.
How did I show up when somebody resigned? How do I show up when we need to terminate something? How do you show up when you want a client? How do you show up in that day from a heart leadership perspective? The whole servant leadership piece that we just debated about.
That's called self-regulation, and that's being the best version of yourself, is being able to, whatever life presents us, is being appropriate in that. My definition of mental health has always been and remains the ability to adapt to reality. Well, we don't like reality half the time, maybe more than half the time. So we're constantly trying to shape reality, including our own identities. I don't want to be that identity. A frog wants. I want to be a. I want to be a bird, so I can fly. I don't want to be contained to the ground. But we are.
Yeah.
That's how we were wired. So it's that. It really is that beauty and understanding. It's a process of accepting and receiving.
Yeah.
Like receiving and accepting, actually, in that order.
So say that definition again. So mental health is
being appropriate to reality. Appropriately responding to reality.
Okay. So then the question is are we confused by the reality, or do we not have an appropriate response to reality that we get stuck?
Yes. I think for some of us, it's we don't like the reality.
Right.
And so we're going to try to change it. And a lot of us are confused by the reality because of all the lies we've been told. When I mean lies, that sounds a little harsh, but all the messages that are not based in reality, they're based on people's fears. You should go to college. You should get A's and B's in all your classes. You should. All the shoulds and musts ends up becoming inadvertently sometimes the narrative through which we judge success. It's unfortunate. And unless we have the ability to create a healthy ecosystem in ourselves and with others to be able to see reality more clearly. And this is good for executives. If your team, if your company isn't psychologically safe enough for people to actually see reality, you're just pushing the can down the road, because you're helping them, ignore reality faster and better.
Right.
And be worse human beings. That's what you're doing. A lot of companies make worse human beings by working for them.
Yeah, it's interesting because, a lot of what we do as an organization is we try to help organizations increase their performance using the technology they have, right? But a key part of that whole process is educating, empowering the people at all levels. And part of that education is helping them recognize that failure is okay, how to correct in the reality of the day using the technology you have. And it gets a little clinical because there's some disciplines you got to follow to do that. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to people working together, people acknowledging and cohesively establishing a plan to go forward with, and then executing against that. And if something breaks, it breaks, and if you work together. And that part is always missed because we tend to think it is a technological solution. Coming back to our AI conversation, we think it's, if I put this app in or I do this, it's going to just work. No, you got to still know how to apply it, adjust, and then actually live the best version of yourself every day.
If I could say this about, I think Reveal's biggest challenge is that they don't see the beauty in who they actually are. Because I think you do that. You start every day with that mindset and that goal, and certain, like all companies, you get off course, but that's what you're trying to deliver.
Yeah.
And because the world says you have to, be a $50 million company or $200 million company to be successful, that's just bullshit. That's not true.
Yeah.
So I think what you do, I've been able to observe it, is amazing. It really is. It transforms what matters, and that's the mindset and the heart of people. Sometimes it leads to big contracts and lots of bonuses at the end of the year. as you've known over the past 10 years, 15 years, it's not always led that way, but some really amazing things have happened.
Yeah. It's very transformative for the humans around us.
It is.
Giving them the ability to be able to go back home and say, hey, I feel productive because I was able to get what I did in the day, where it usually would take me 12 hours. I could get it done in 2 hours. But more importantly, I could use my brain to do good things. I could care for others around me, and I could go home.
If you could do, if Reveal would realize the one thing, the KPI I would measure is, did I, as whatever if I'm a TA or what's the middle one?
BMA.
BMA.
Yeah.
Whichever role I'm playing at Reveal, if I helped one person realize I'm there to serve them, they've now accepted my help instead of rejected it and been threatened by it, you win.
Yeah.
Everybody wins because they're now a student instead of scared. That's the key. That's the key KPI. And every time I interact with your employees, we remind them, we talk to them about this, that is the way you transform the supply chain, is you create a safe relationship where they will receive instruction from you because you've invited them, not demanded. And when Reveal is not her best self is when it's demanded.
Yeah.
And when it's micromanaged and it's, I've never seen anybody yell at Reveal, but the version of yelling psychologically is stares and, shunning and not talking or email. And so when Reveal's her best self, she's literally unlocking people's fears to be open to be taught.
Right.
And wow, when people have that and they get it, the challenge we've had is with this, hopefully they're not listening to this, but the senior executives, are they willing to be taught? Do they even care? Do they understand what you're teaching? And I would say the clients I've been working with, no, they didn't.
Yeah.
They thought you were doing behavior modification with their supply chain.
Yeah.
They didn't realize. And I think that's
on
what
the
I
people
mean.
on the coal face, not necessarily all the way up the chain. Yeah. Which is actually part of why this conversation, I started off with the conversation specifically about executives, because I do think there's a disparity between what they say they're looking for versus what they then expect the team to do, and then how the team is expecting them to show up, and then the support that has to go. I mean, the leader's primary role for the most part is to try and remove obstacles for the team around them. That's in many ways serving
to set them free.
Set them free, right?
Yeah. If you could set people free that work for you, and you hire reasonably competent people, they will dance in the streets for you. If you try to, and we all do this, I do it too with the people. If I try to control the outcome by saying you got to do it this way, then I'm now robbed them of that opportunity to be who they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
And because I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of that every day. I think the key metric here is I have to daily empty myself of that nonsense. Daily. I mean, maybe hourly some days, Martin. On the way here this morning, I'm like, just get empty, Doug. Whatever we talk about today, don't bring any other stuff into it because it's just going to be less than beautiful. It just is. So sometimes it's hourly, certainly daily. Empty yourself of the nonsense. One of the words you had for the company a few years ago was essential.
Yeah.
Like, get rid of the non-essential in your life and what's essential today?
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh, the coach of now the Los Angeles Chargers, is that right? Says win the day. He's the coach, used to be of University of Michigan, who's now banned from sports forever, or 10 years from the Big Ten. The way he does it is he says, how do we win the day? And today, winning the day might be responding well to failure. I would say, I don't know, I'll bet more often than not, that's going to be you're going to have more opportunity to respond to failure than you are success.
Yeah.
I haven't said that out loud before. Do you find that true? that the opportunity you're given is going to be how I respond. I could fail or I succeed at that. The amount of successful ways I do that are going to be smaller than the amount of opportunities I have to fail. I think
you're right. And I think also, I would want to say that I would lean towards the failure part, right? But I also know that the inherent fear of failure is going to push you towards success, which may sometimes actually prevent you from pushing as hard as you could for yourself.
Correct. Yeah, because you're afraid of failure. Now you're actually not
Yeah.
being authentic. You're now afraid. So you're
Well, and like you said, this total success, if you want, right, is really a small increments of success along the way, which to your earlier point was be the best you can be in that day. Not necessarily better than yesterday, just be the best in the circumstances you're in. Those are small wins, as you said, to win the day. Over time, you're going to succeed so much further and better than if you have big wins.
Yeah, one author that I love, Marshall Goldsmith, says it this way. He calls success delusion. That success can actually be a delusion. Because we were successful yesterday, we assume we're going to be successful today. And the success delusion tells us that yesterday's successes are cumulative. We get a new, and in fact, the person you're in front of, an employee or a customer or a potential customer, they don't know about your success yesterday.
Yeah.
You can tell them and they could care less. Like, what are you doing for me today? And so success can actually be a delusion. So maybe a practical technique is we should wake up every day and say, how can I fail really well? In Silicon Valley, they call it failing forward. It kind of caught wind in the 90s and 2000s. Yeah. But the concept is fail fast is actually an innovation technique. I would say let's respond well to reality. Let's first of all see reality and respond well to it, and not the failures that most of us have are so subtle we have no awareness of them.
So in all vulnerability and authenticity, I would say that I would rather be the one saying, how would I respond better to reality than necessarily how would I respond to, or give me failure today, right?
Right.
Just because it just feels, again, this is the insecurities in us, right? I don't want to fail because I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know what people are going to think. I don't know how big it is going to be. Is it going to cause me to be bankrupt? You don't know that fear. How do I respond to reality is far more appealing. But is that still the right thing to do? Is it just feel better to do that? Or should I be rather asking to be more innovative and open and growing? Do I need to seek out necessarily that failure?
Yeah, it probably is dependent on your growth edge, where you're at in your seasons of your life. Some seasons of my life I had to push myself harder. Other seasons were not that way. I'm kind of in that season now where I'm like, I'm not gliding, but I'm actually just waiting. I'm waiting and receiving. So it's I think it depends. I think a lot of it has to do with the idea that we respond to reality. If we understand reality and we respond appropriate to it, we won't. Maya Angelou says that I either succeed or learn. She doesn't have failure. I love that quote. So it's about learning.
Yeah.
The research in conflict, the best research in conflict mastery, conflict with employees, with family members, is that we have two mindsets. One is we're going to win a battle mindset, or we're going to have a learning mindset.
Yeah.
And if we could take a learning mindset to reality, like reality's throwing us, Lord help us. I hope one of us don't have a physical condition, because that's what we've been talking about all morning. But one of us, are now diagnosed with something that's going to change our life. Our ability to respond to that reality will determine our success. Period. And we've all seen the bad version of that, the people that fight it, and they are angry at the caregivers, and they're angry at the diagnosis, and they're angry at the world, versus people who have lost their limbs in the military and run races on their hands because they looked at reality and go, oh, if I really want to run, I've got to learn a different way to do this. I'm so impressed with people that have that resiliency EQ, that resiliency quotient. But I think that's what I'm saying is success. The best version of yourself is to be resilient with reality. Period.
I love that. Resilience to reality. And the other thing that I'd like to think about is how do we convert this mindset of fear of failure, rather turn it into seeking to learn? What a positive spin on that, because by definition, it's it comes from that failure component. But instead of being afraid of it, you're rather saying, I'm going to be curious to learn from it.
It's just
Seeking to learn.
Yeah, it's just changing the white picket fence ending. The end point is to learn, not to do it perfectly.
Right.
It's the same treatment for perfectionism. You got to engage the mystery. You can't do it perfectly. It's a mystery, so you engage the mystery. The mystery is, we'll see, right? And so, and fallibility. I think fallibility. I am not perfect. Therefore, why do I expect perfection? So, if reality is going to teach us things, we got to learn. We're going to learn from it. So I don't have to do it perfectly. I actually am gonna, I'm gonna mess around. I don't like to play golf anymore because I can't play, but it's still fun, and I can learn. Oh, that I can't do that anymore. That club doesn't get me where it used to get me in any way, shape, or form.
Something. You didn't fail. You learned something.
I did. I learned not to put $50 down on a hole anymore, like I might have done in my 20s. So it's about learning. It's about engaging. And by all means, just show up in life, as Woody Allen says. Show up and see reality for what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hardest part for me. Personally, for me, in all vulnerability, can I see reality? Right. And the answer is no, I can't. So I need trusted advisors. I need people around me to help me remember. I'm constantly asking people, am I hearing that right? Because I'm not confident in my ability to define reality because of all the 63 years of messages, lies, and truths that are confusing. So we have to see reality, and then our response is in relationship to that. And then our metric is different because we're learning, not trying to be perfect. It's very simple, right? Go do it. That's why coaching is so...
Everybody go do it.
Yeah. That's why coaching is so challenging, Martin, is I can't do it perfectly.
Yeah.
And if you
go from infallible person to infallible
right.
person.
So becoming friends with your clients, as happened with us, is really hard because now I lose all credibility because my inadequacies, my fears, because we've chosen to allow that to evolve. And some would say I've lost the power, me, the coach, because I've given permission to a friendship. When we went to Nicaragua, I knew on a mission trip, I knew that would be amazing, but I also knew you were going to see me turn that little black thing on where the fan kept everybody awake all night. I knew there would be things about me that you would know, whatever my fears are, and that was worth the risk to me. Yeah. Because now I have a way to be real with you and honest with you, but not everybody's for that.
Well, and you were open to seeking to learn, and I was open to seeking to learn, and actually because of that, we've become deeper and better friends, maybe than what we would have been if we kept at each other at arm's length.
Yeah, but my advisors would say that's a bad idea because now you've lost the edge.
Yeah,
and right, so they may be right. I certainly might have lost the edge, but it in return, what I got is not only friendship, but also learning for myself. Like, how do I actually be healthy in this reality, right? Doing these things together. And some of my clients don't become friends, which I'm fine with that. Some of it's proximity because you live in the Chicago area. Some of it is heart and mission. I love what Reveal does. I really do. Yeah. Like healthcare. Yeah, I know you do. I love healthcare, but not all healthcare because some of them are very transactional. I love people. Academic medicine is truly trying to learn how to be better at healthcare. That's what their mission is, research and train others. So it appeals to it allows me to be my authentic self.
Doug, this is amazing. You're a friend, a scholar, a legend, all of the above. Thank you very much for your time.